What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and we are back for another episode of the Doug Polk podcast. Today, we are joined by a famous internet, now live poker player, Daniel Cates, Jungleman, will be joining the podcast. Plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about the durrrr challenge. I'm sure that's going to be resolved any day now. We're also going to be talking a little bit about some of the recent antics online. Of course, we're going to talk about the Hellmuth stuff, maybe a little bit of frog poison in here as well. And then also, we have an exciting announcement for you guys, so stay tuned. Should be a great one here today on the podcast. But before we jump into the podcast, I want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by CoinFLEX. We have exciting news about CoinFLEX. Recently, the platform has launched in the U.S. market. The first 2,000 people that sign up and mint flexUSD will receive a free $50 with that qualifying promotion or offer. Another great ad read here on the Doug Polk podcast, as always. So head over to coinflex.us. No trading fees on cryptocurrency trades. The only platform in the world, to my knowledge, that does that. So if you want to have no trading fees when you trade in and out of your favorite currencies, you can head on over to coinflex.us and check it out. Legal disclaimer: none of the information contained here constitutes an offer to buy or sell any cryptocurrency. Okay, we'll go with that for now until we have the final ad read. All right, moving on. One last thing, actually, before I jump into today. The Lodge Championship Series, our series begins on May 4th. Guess what, guys? That's tomorrow. So come on down to the Lodge. $5 million in guarantees. A lot of high-stakes poker going to be played. A lot of low-stakes poker going to be played. A lot of tournaments going to be played. A phenomenal series. $2 million guaranteed main event, $3,000 buy-in. Should be phenomenal. I'm going to be there a bunch. Brad and Andrew, of course, will be stopping by as well. Should be a great one. So head on down. I'll see you guys at the Lodge. Now, on to today's guest. We bring in Daniel Jungleman Cates.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, what's up?
What up?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining the podcast today.
I heard something about frog poison. I'm interested.
We have a little frog. We always got to have just a taste of frog poison to keep you interested in the pod.
Well, it's the latest hot trend. You know, you got to be on top of the trends. You know, I'm one of those kinds of guys that's, in with the scene now. Something like that.
What's the scene that we're in with?
Spiritual. I don't know. Frog poison something and shamans and psychics.
Of course. All right. Well,
I've heard something about getting a cocksucker Wiskowski shirt. I don't really understand who this person is, but sounds interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think cocksucker Mizakowski has built up quite the audience. Fan base he certainly did not have just 3 weeks ago. All right, so let's kick things off. This is off to a phenomenal start. Let's kick things off with a brief introduction on what you've been doing recently. So you recently launched your own podcast. We did an episode. It's not live. It's a recorded episode. So why don't you tell the audience here a little bit about what you've been working on and what made you decide to get into the wonderful world of podcasting?
So basically, I decided to make a podcast to expand my career beyond poker. And it was one of the possible ways to do it, to expand my brand beyond. I'm still kind of figuring out this whole, do business in poker. It's kind of like, for me, what is that exactly? But I've kind of figured out a route that seems very realistic now. And the podcast is about something I'm quite passionate about. Or a few different things that I'm quite passionate about, which is one, I had to really think in not so conventional ways to think, okay, what actually resonates with myself? Well, one is winning. Actually, I've got a competitive element to myself. Although that's not really an obvious one. You would think of something that interests you as like a specific topic, like poker or whatever. But poker's in there too. I had to use my poker audience, and winning is a big part of that. And there's a very fierce competitive element in that. And the latest idea is to do it in such a way that helps the world, and do it in a benevolent way that helps everyone, which I'm also interested in. So it's like, how do you combine competitiveness and winning? And this is like, this actually happens in nature as just a side note, but I'm trying to make this a reality on my podcast as well, is to create a podcast that's got a little something for everyone. Maybe even literally. it's winning the game of life. It's trying to help everyone win. There's some poker in there, and I'm branching out to other subjects as well. And it's helping other people win in various different ways. Part of that is helping oneself win in certain ways, because you can't really help other people before you can help yourself. So, this applies to poker players. They can learn it. They can get tips to get better, or get the latest scoop on gossip or whatever. And, it goes into health and who knows what else, and full on philanthropy and effective altruism and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's what my podcast is about. Feels like not a bad start considering, but need some, need to learn a few lessons and that kind of thing. It also seemed like kind of one of those things that you could call it the low-hanging fruit of sorts. It didn't seem like that hard to launch given the connections that I had, if that makes sense.
One of the things that I find when it comes to making content is you kind of have to pick your side of the aisle. And so when you talk about some poker, some non-poker, one thing that I found is when I'm doing poker content, obviously my audience has primarily been poker, it's kind of tough to do both. I feel like if you are going to go non-poker, you sort of have to really embrace non-poker and try and build outside. And if you're going to go poker, you really just need to embrace poker and really lead with that. So when you say you're going to be doing some poker and some non-poker stuff, how are you planning to thread the needle where people that tune in, what are you viewing your average viewer like? Because if you're too poker heavy, people aren't going to tune in from outside poker. And if you're not poker heavy enough, then poker people won't be there. How are you planning on kind of bridging that gap?
You know what? That's a good question. That's actually a really good question. My personal guess is that the Pareto principle would apply here.
Which principle?
The Pareto principle, where 20% is, 80% of the value comes from like 20%. Is that right? 20% creates 80% of the value. That could be the case for poker. And hopefully the case with, and the other 80% can create the value for the other people. I actually not 100% sure if that works. I probably should look into that and get like a more precise answer that I know for a fact works, because that's something that I didn't know. That's something, that's a good thing to study and see if there's like an efficient way to do this, because I didn't know what you just said.
Yeah, 80-20 rule is something I heard before. I'd never heard it called that principle before, so little learning there for me.
It's called the Pareto principle, yeah. It applies in all sorts of things. I don't know if it always has to apply. It's just interesting. It shows up everywhere. It shows up in economics. It shows up in it shows up in learning poker, actually. For example, you get if you know 80% of the basics in poker, or 80% of the information in poker, you let's see. I mean, that's basically
the results.
Yeah, it's not really.
I don't know if that works.
It doesn't work that way, but basically that's enough to like not really lose that much.
Okay, I gotcha. So
they're diminishing returns with the more and more knowledge that you can get, but 80% is quite easy to get. I'm not a Pareto principle expert, but this seems like something I should know like the back of my hand.
Maybe a good topic for your next podcast. Before we jump into our first topic here, where can people find your podcast if they want to go check you out?
They can find it on YouTube. I've got a YouTube. I'll send a link later. They can find it on Apple Podcasts as well. It's on the link's on my Instagram, and I often post on Twitter.
What's the name of the podcast?
Winning the Game of Life.
Winning in the Game of Life. Okay, I would have probably led with that. That's a strong title. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some of the stuff here. We've had a really hectic last month or two in the poker world. A lot of stuff happening. I gotta kick this off with asking about the jungle, or it's not called the Jungle Challenge. It's called the durrrr Challenge. It's been about 12 years at this point. I think you guys started in 2010. Maybe I'm wrong on that. It's got to be in that vicinity. Maybe might have been 2009.
No, you're right. 2010.
Okay, 2010. We're looking at 12 years into the challenge. Obviously, there's been a significant lack of volume over the last 12 years. What the first year actually did have some volume. What is the status of the challenge today? Have you been talking with Tom? When is this thing going to get resolved? Because at some point, I feel like we kind of already do have a de facto winner because you're up by so much and there has been no hands in forever. But at some point, shouldn't we have an actual declaration that this is over and that he forfeits either the side bet or whatever it was? Where are we at today in terms of the challenge?
Okay, so a bunch of things. We do talk occasionally. This has been really tough experience for me in all sorts of ways that I didn't expect, particularly dealing with people and realizing my own weaknesses. But I am officially the winner of this challenge. He did forfeit it. I can say that Tom has put in. It's sort of a complicated situation because I don't really have the full picture of what his situation looks like. I guess there could be there's no way that he's behaved totally fair objectively, but he has put an effort on many different occasions. We did arbitrate it, I should say. It's like basically there was a ruling, and I put in, I gave all my evidence and all that, and he put in his side of the argument, and we kind of came to a conclusion in sort of how do I explain this? So basically, I gave all my evidence, and he kind of ignored it, and I got really furious, and he was allowed to back out, kind of, but then we kind of somehow through one of the arbitrators actually got us to kind of get along and kind of agree somewhat to something, and basically terms were decided for what to do with this, and Tom is doing his best in his way to, well, I don't know if he's
all
doing
right.
his best.
I got to jump in here because there's so many things to talk about. Let's just take a step back.
Okay.
So an arbitration was agreed to between you and Tom Dwan. What was the agreement when it came to the arbitration?
Well, we agreed to do what these three arbitrators said. I'm pretty sure we did. I'd have to really back check and check to make sure that we did. But it seems like the annoying thing was basically Tom was allowed to back out whenever he wanted. And this is where me getting angry and furious that my evidence didn't seem to matter to this guy was really stupid. And basically, you don't want to give someone extra reason to do something that you don't want them to. But basically, he was allowed to back out. But he ended up basically deciding, you know what, this isn't fair anyway, and I'm gonna at least pay the 1.5, and then penalties will figure something out. And then I realized something about the penalties. It wasn't fair in a really subtle way, which I'll get to in a second. What was the other question before I did?
Well, I want to clarify a few things here, actually. So for starters, just so everyone understands, the challenge was played at 200, 400, $40,000 buy-in, and there was a $1.5 million side bet. Tom Dwan's $1.5 million to your $500K, and then the hand number, I believe it was 25 or 50,000. I forget the number of hands. Was the number of
50,000.
50,000.
50,000.
Okay.
He played about 25,000.
Okay, so when we're talking about what the value remaining of the challenge is, it's the side bet, which is 1.5 million that he owes, and then it's the remaining value of those hands, whatever the theoretical win rate would be. And then there's a third category of payment here, which are essentially penalties imposed on Tom for not playing and avoiding playing and delaying playing and whatever there might be. So there's three different sort of things here that we're looking at when we're talking about the value that Tom would owe moving forward. Going back to the arbitration, why would you have an arbitration where if one person doesn't like it, they can just say no? Is that even?
Well, that's what I said to the arbitrators. I was like, "What the hell is this?" And one person was pretty persistent to get things working. Fortunately, I'm quite thankful for that. I don't understand this either. It just feels really unfair to me. But technically, I guess the arbitrators can say you owe the money, and if he doesn't want to pay, he's not going to pay, right? I don't know a good explanation for this other than the arbitrators should have been a little bit more firm. I can't think of anything else. It just feels just say that this is the thing. I don't know what else to say. My personal view is that the arbitrators should have been more firm.
So the arbitrators, it sounds like there was three arbitrators, right?
Yes.
So they each. So at the end of it, you will present your sides. They didn't say.
Yes.
They didn't arbitrate because an arbitrator's whole thing is to arbitrate. They didn't say that here should be the result. What do you mean they didn't make a decision? I find that kind of confusing.
Well, they kind of did, but it was more through the volition of Tom, actually, and Vivek stepped in a little bit too, um, and through one of the arbitrators primarily, and me. It was more like we like had this ad hoc arbitration. We're like, all right, forget this whole thing, and then um, this roughly is fair is what we agreed to. I mean, I should for sure be owed more penalties somehow, but you can't. It's hard to get exactly what you want sometimes, and that's a different matter. And I did decide that the penalties that I am really, really sure that he agreed to were unfair. As I realized, I came to the decision morally that although I'm pretty sure that I literally let this guy pick these penalties, I'm like really, 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 really sure, and I feel like I posted quite a bit of evidence. I decided that basically this guy kind of like hung himself, and that he was it was like it wasn't fair really to hold him to this high steep of a penalty. It was just too egregious, and it didn't make any sense for me to be so like it was not really practical, and it was just how do I say it was just too cruel to hold someone to
We're
something that it's too cruel to let someone hang themselves basically is what I decided. And I decided, you know what, let's renegotiate the penalties, even though I kept letting him off and kept letting him off. But basically, picked penalties that let him hang himself. If even I was right, which I mean, I really think I'm right. I really think
let's
so. He thinks there were down payments, but okay, cool
let's
story.
let's just take a step back here because I think for the
Okay,
audience it's a little hard to understand. We're throwing a lot of things out at once. I know we've talked about the
okay,
arbitration a
okay.
couple of times. I just want to final thoughts here. So there was
All
three
right.
judges. You guys went to arbitration, and then did these three judges say this is our verdict in each one, or did they not issue a verdict in what should happen with the challenge?
Not collectively.
Okay, so
I'm very sure,
individuals
but I
of
should
the
check. Huh?
okay, so individuals. There's three judges. I assume that's private who they are. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I should say that.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want you to have to say. I don't want you to say things that you don't know if you should say or not. But these three judges, they did not each render a verdict because when you have an arbitration, you have three judges, and we had something arbitrated once. Each each judge gives their verdict, and then if you have two out of three, typically you win, or maybe it's like a per judge basis or whatever it is, or that would be the decision. So why did the arbitrators not come to a decision as a group or each issue their own verdict or whatever it might be? Why was there not an official verdict given by the arbitrators? Because if they don't give
Why?
a
Why is a
verdict,
very good question. Because everything's on volition, I guess, man. And if I'm being an asshole, uh, Tom can back out. I don't really agree with the way things were run. I definitely don't agree, and I don't really agree with Tom backing out. But I also admit that I shouldn't act really aggressive and crazy because it's like one of these things that's a negative free roll. Let's put it that way. So I made the situation a lot worse than it should have been, and it's a big learning lesson for me. Uh, yeah,
all right,
rage usually sucks.
doesn't tend to help things. So you guys have this arbitration. They don't collectively issue an opinion, and Tom backs out. Where does that leave what happened in the challenge moving forward? So Tom has paid, I think Tom has paid a fairly large number in penalties, correct?
Well, see, this is where we disagree. This is a big topic because Tom one day decided, from my point of view, that they were down payments, and this made me really furious. This made me really furious, and again, not a good move, Dan. Even though I'm like really sure, I would just bet so much money that that's total bullshit. And we had to negotiate that, and I provided like 12 screenshots of fucking talking about penalties and the implications. And then, as I explained before, it kind of occurred to me, wait a second, this dude, even if he picked the penalties that I thought he picked, it's cruel for me to hold him to penalties that essentially hung himself and are wildly out of proportion to what he should pick. So I said, you know what, let's just renegotiate the penalties and do something, do something that's actually fair. Because like what's actually fair is not it's just not going to be like an enormous amount, like $1 million. It might be like, I don't know, like, what's actually fair might be like 250 or something, even though I got completely screwed in this thing.
I think what would be fair in this situation is there was a side bet in this challenge. He forfeits. He loses the side bet. I think that if you asked an average person,
he agrees with that actually.
Okay, so the side bet was 1.5 million to your 500K.
We're agreement on that.
Okay, so then why does he not just owe you 1.5 million? We can all call this end of session. We can wrap this up. He can pay you, and then everyone's side bets that people have had on this for goddamn 12 years, which some people have still not resolved yet because it's been delayed.
The side bet should be resolved. He forfeit, and we're in agreement that he owes 1.5. He's paid most of. He's essentially paid most of it. I mean, we really need to like what's truly fair for sure is that penalties of some sort need to be negotiated, because for sure, and this is a big qualm that I have with how poker debts are run, is that people, if they owe money for long periods of time, it's not at face when they finally get paid. That's clearly not fair, because that incentivizes people to not pay their debts on time.
Right.
It incentivizes people to like do things like leverage their debts against, paying you, which is, in my opinion, very fucked up and scummy.
Yeah, interest-free loan,
it's
basically.
Just like, dude, like, okay. I don't know how to change that, but that's something to talk about. Actually, is how to change that.
Well, we got plenty to talk about here. We have no shortage of topics, and I'm just trying to wade through it, get like the best idea of what happened in this situation. So at this point,
well,
Tom has forfeited. Tom has admitted he forfeits this challenge.
Yes, he has.
Okay.
He seemed, at times he seemed reasonable about it. Other than the time frame, I mean, the time frame just has to be. I feel like this is just a huge thing that's wildly unfair for me.
Okay, so at this point, the challenge is over.
Put an effort.
He's forfeited. He owes you some amount of money. What have you guys agreed on a final tally for what he owes you to finally conclude this?
No, but what we did agree on was the 1.5. We agreed on that with the penalties. We didn't really agree. Like, he also helped me in some ways, and that's one thing that we need to negotiate. Is like, how much did he help me in some ways? And I did things to hurt his name, which
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. But continue.
It depends. It depends on what
if someone steals, no, I don't agree with this at all. If someone steals money from you, and then you say, "Hey, this guy stole money from you," they don't owe you less because you hurt their name. That is fucking bullshit.
Well, let's put it this way: if someone owes you money that they borrowed from you, and you go out and say steal, it's close to the truth. But if you go out and say this person is a scumbag and this person,
I say that all the time about Tom.
If you take it further than it is, now you've done something bad. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean.
What I'm saying is
he was a scumbag here. These were scumbag moves by Tom. He owed you the money. He handled it terribly. He owes other people money. He owes Albus money. Doesn't pay his debts. He was a scumbag here. So I don't think that you saying, if a scumbag's a scumbag and you say, "Hey, he's a scumbag," the guy can't be like, "Bro, now that you're attacking me, I owe you less money." That's complete nonsense. And I feel like a little bit here is you're trying to see Tom's side so much that you're letting him off the hook on things like that when it was completely unacceptable what happened in this.
I'm not letting him off the hook. No, he has to pay.
I know, but you're saying,
I believe his reputation should definitely be hurt. Look, what I'm trying to say is his reputation.
Then why should you be paid less money on what you're owed because you said true things about Tom Dwan publicly? Doesn't make sense.
If they're only true things, then you're correct. If I say things that, but this is something I don't 100% understand, because for sure there should be some leniency before doing these things, because just thinking about it, for sure, just like, so let's put it this way: if you owe a debt and it's 1 day past due, and then and let's say you owe it to me, and I say, oh, this person's a scumbag. They owed me money for 1 day past due, and especially if you meant to pay, but like something really strange happened to you, like you got hit by a car or whatever, like that would be really unreasonable, right? I don't know exactly what the time frame is for when you want to go out and say, hey, this person's a scumbag. And personally, I wouldn't say it like that. I suspect the real more way to say it is exactly out as it happened, is like, this person I lent money to and he didn't pay after this day, just to put it in total neutrality and don't put the hate into it. That's one of my personal guesses for what's truly moral. Just because, I mean, this is something that's happened to fascinate me, is like extreme morality. And people will infer their own conclusions based on that, right? So other people might then go say and spread it to wherever else and say, oh, this person was a scumbag, or blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, that's like how some version of justice happens, is you say the neutral truth and people respond accordingly. That's what I think anyway. I think that the word scumbag is a really extreme version and also implies malicious intent, which I do not believe that Tom ever had, although I believe that he was negligent for sure. I believe he's very, very negligent, and I believe actually that he's certainly paid the price to that. And because of that, by the way, I even don't even see the point of hurting him. It's like, what is the point of attacking this guy?
Well, we're
Do you know
getting,
what I mean?
well, so look, like, I actually don't know what you mean, to be honest, because I feel like in poker, when people do scummy shit, we should call it out. And in doing that, we make it so that people don't want to do scummy shit. Because if we have this thing where we try and see the other side all the time on things that are fairly clear cut, then we let people get away with things and they don't have to basically suffer the repercussions of their actions. Going back to your example, 1 day late on a debt where you were hit by a car versus 12 years playing poker in poker rooms around the world are two extremely different things that should be judged differently. And I don't think that that's a comparable analogy, although I see the point you're making is 1 day they a scumbag.
Well,
We're
what I'm saying
way
is
past
that
scumbag territory here for Tom.
yeah, of course. I'm just
Way
saying that
past.
there's a point where like the word scumbag is hard to use. Like
But that doesn't apply here. He was. I don't understand this whole conversation. You're like, if he, you're like, well, if somebody wasn't a scumbag, they're not. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. But we're talking about how the way that Tom Dwan handled this challenge, and should your debt number change because of what you said about Tom Dwan? I think the answer is no. By the way, Jungle, I actually think my take on the way you've handled this, I think you've been way too reasonable. I think you've been trying to
what do you want me to
understanding.
do, dude?
I don't know.
I think my anger has hurt me, dude, man. I'm telling you, like, that's the only conclusion that I can come to, is that I actually should have been just stayed at firm and just persistent, and just all that anger I should have just put over here. Because I mean, maybe a little bit of anger, yeah, but like not like full blown crazy anger. Let's put it that way. Full blown crazy anger. Maybe like a little. I don't know. I think just less anger. I think that's the main mistake that I made looking back at it. And other than that, I don't really know what I could have done, to be honest. By the way, the anger, I think, also made the person who guaranteed not want to pay too, which the person guaranteed Tom up to 2 million and then to 1.5 and then deleted the texts. But
Ooh,
yeah,
who did that?
and see, I'm not sure I want to say yet, but
well, you're gonna have to make a decision here. We don't have that long today.
For now, I'm not gonna say.
Okay, you cannot say for now. That's fine. I want to just clear. I want to just bottom line cliff notes. Wrap up in a little tidy package. This durrrr challenge thing. What number has Tom paid so far? What number would you feel like this is over at, and you can accept it? And so, what's the number basically where Tom has to pay, where we're fine to move on, and we can never say durrrr challenge ever again?
Okay. So first of all, he has to pay the 1.5. He's paid about 1.35, or it's between 1.3 to 1.4. He might have paid 1.4, but I don't think so. I think it's 1.35 for some reason. And what the penalties he should pay He did help me with some things, actually. He got me on a site, which I ended up on an online site, which I ended up winning a lot of money on, for example. And I have to think of some other things that he helped me with.
Yeah, but unless it's expressly that he's getting you on these things to reduce debt, those things are irrelevant of a debt number. So
This one was like specifically as like some kind of favor or something. I think he helped me with a couple other things, but I don't remember off the top of my head because I like just realized this right now. But other than that, the real penalty amount should at least be, you know, whatever the market interest was, like minus whatever he helped, kind of thing. But part of the issue is that I played against him on this fucking site, which is really stupid.
there were hands of you versus Tom Dwan not in the challenge.
Yeah.
You guys played some heads up on the side while the
I got karma or whatever you want to call it. The universe really punished me for this. I don't know. It's hard to say, but for sure, it feels like when I do things that are clearly unethical, I get punished super hard. In this case, I just got my ass handed to me. It was by far the worst session I've ever played against, and I was like, "Holy shit, this guy's killing me!" And it was on that app. It was what the whole scandal was, and I was the only person who got caught.
Oh, no.
Somehow, and I like the least guilty out of everyone.
Oh, you're talking about the Bill Perkins
biggest joke
tweet.
ever.
The Bill Perkins tweet where he said this is bigger than Mike Puzzle.
I didn't do like to Bill. I was trying to like pay him money that for sure it was wildly unfair, and he wouldn't take it.
I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the heads up match, but I want to finalize this topic. So Thomas paid 1.35 million. I assume it was mainly in penalties at the time, and then he said these should be down payments, right? That's what he's saying happened.
He said it should be down payments. I mean, I feel like he owes me a penalty for that one because holy shit, there's no way they're down payments.
Right. I mean, you guys agreed there were penalties. I remember talking with you at the time. You said he's paying penalties. Okay. So I guess it's a weird spot where now it's like if they become down payments, which they weren't, then he's closer to the 1.5 figure. I guess at this point, are you okay including that just to end this, or do you still feel like that's unfair? Or what's the number here where you feel like this was
He doesn't know the down payments. He doesn't, or excuse me, he doesn't know the full penalties that I also reduced multiple times. Something
I'll tell you what, Jungle. Next time, if I ever need a loan, I'm coming to you first.
No, I'm out of the loan business. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I made so many dumb mistakes trusting people, but sometimes trusting people worked out too. By the way, it's tough game of sorts.
A lot of variance in trusting people.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance in trusting people. Let me tell you. But I find it to be sort of a fascinating game of sorts. But I just don't know how to study it. Let's put it that way. But I have experience playing it, you could say. Yeah, with Tom, something to do with whatever the mainstream, the main interest is, or excuse me, the market interest. I think that would be fair. It's hard to say, like I would have done something else. I've done like really stupid investments also, so market interest is probably fair.
Another topic I'd love to get into, but there's still one last question here. What's the number here where you feel like it's fair and this thing has been resolved with Tom?
You need to do a calculation. I don't know what it is. It's between. I would say it's less than 500K of penalties. I'm trying to think if there's any reason why it should be less. I also, by the way, I don't know if I agree with you about I'm not looking at his side as much. I maybe should look at his side. I should have looked at his side more, is the funny thing.
No.
But like what you don't understand is, how do I explain this? It's like what do you think the best action is to take in these situations that's mutually beneficial? That's actually, don't even say mutually beneficial, but beneficial for yourself.
See, that's a problem though. And this is a problem that I've had with the poker community for a long time, is you get in these spots and then people get in it, as the person getting scammed, you have a choice, you have a chance to do the right thing, or you have a chance to do what's in your best interest. And what happens over and over and over and over and over and over again, the poker community is people do what's in their best interest. And the reality is, if people just outed people that were scumbags immediately, there would be so many less debts in the community. People would be so much better protected. For example, I wouldn't have gotten scammed by Brad Booth. It's just a simple example.
Oh, I
I'm
didn't
sure
say he
there were.
shouldn't be outed. I didn't say he shouldn't be outed.
Well,
Um,
what I'm saying is the idea that you make a decision that's in your best interest when someone steals from you. What it does is it protects people, and there are so many things in poker like this where people don't say anything because they hope they get paid back, or they want to basically have the best chance for themselves. But I think that type of behavior enables people, and I've seen it time and time again. I've seen tweets by people where they say, guys, focus on the good things, don't talk about this stuff. I think it's really important that we talk about these things and we out these things because it helps protect the community at large.
I look. So I'm agreeing with outing him. I'm just disagreeing with the way that he's outed. And I actually think with what you're saying right now, what I think is he should be like, well, he was outed anyway multiple times. Essentially, I was like posting about this and that sort of shit. For sure, his reputation should take a hit. I do not believe it's fair for him to have the same reputation. How can that be true? But what I'm saying is I just think the way that he's outed should be changed and not in the form of let's hate this guy kind of thing. And this guy's a bad person exactly, or this guy's like a piece of shit, because I don't see what that does that's actually beneficial.
But it's
if
the
you
truth.
just
That's
leave
the
it at
thing.
the facts, if you just leave it at the facts without putting a label on it that's that extreme, then the same thing happens without the hate.
Let
Let's
me
put it
give you
that
an
way. The
example.
hate is what's bad.
Let me give you an example here. When we play poker, both of us, I'd say that we're both pretty good poker players. When we were on our way up, sometimes we would take a beating. I'm sure we've both taken our share of beatings. And then when you look at the hands and you try and fix what's right, you don't analyze them and say, or fix what you did wrong. You don't analyze them and say, what good does it do to say that this hand was bad? I should just continue to play poker the way I want to play. You look at it, you say that was bad. It's not that, it's just a reality. It's just a fact. It's just what it is. So I'm not saying that people should hate needlessly, but the reality is in this example, if someone, even if it wasn't with malice, because I think I agree with you, I don't think that Tom acted with malice here. It still doesn't change what he did, and it doesn't change the facts of the case. And I guess like what I'm focused on here is what are the facts regarding what he did, and actions speak a lot louder than words, regardless of what their intentions are. It's a matter of what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I agree. But I also do not agree that the statement, Tom, I do not agree that it's fair to call him a scumbag. Actually, I think that's not fair.
I don't explain. Why do you think that?
Because let me explain why. Because what's a good analogy? It's sort of like,
What about other debts Tom has? Does that factor
let's
in?
put it like this. Yeah. I mean, that makes, not the best situation, but let's put it like this. If you've got a ball and it's a little bit red and it's blue a lot, to call it all red, even if it's like 30% red, and call it and just say it's all red, is not fair to the ball. It's like,
Okay,
dude, that
but
ball's like 30% red.
that's not how this works. It's not about, is Tom mainly not a scumbag? If you don't scam 9 out of 10 people, you can't say, look at that great person, doesn't scam 9 out of 10 people.
I didn't say
90%
to call
not
him
a
a great
scammer.
person.
Well, what I'm
I
saying
didn't
here,
say great person.
if you scam, I'm gonna be a lot more aggressive on my wording here. If you steal from someone, whether it's with malice or not, you're a scumbag. Is that
I don't
not
agree.
that you don't agree? Well, chat. What do you think? I'll tweet a poll out later. Let's see. If you steal money from
I definitely
someone,
don't agree.
are you a scumbag?
There's many situations where that's like, where someone would have said something that it would have been like reasonable or something, or it would have looked a little bit more reasonable, for example. And I basically just don't agree. I don't see the point of doing that. Also,
All right.
what is the point of doing that? That's not related to hate and ego. How about
The point is to protect people, and
people don't need to be protected against someone who's 99.9% going to do the right thing. They need to be you're right that they need to be protected against the guy who's doing the 30%. Yeah, they definitely do. And I can understand it a lot more to say it in that case. But you can also just say 30% of the time, or these are the people this guy owes debt to. You know what I mean? It doesn't really. I mean, maybe you can get away with saying it in that case, but if it even if it was like 5%, like you would just say this guy like owes debts, like you gotta watch out. Like you don't need to like say that he's a scumbag. You just say that, and it
Why?
accomplishes the
What is
same
this?
thing.
This is we're arguing over essentially semantics here.
Yeah.
You're trying to not
Look,
call someone that steals money a scumbag. Why? Why argue about the semantics over this? I don't understand that.
because
The
there
word
are many ways.
scumbag has to mean something.
I don't know why. Why are you arguing over it? Think about that. You're the one who's trying to call like the 1% like the scumbag. I'm like, okay, that's not how it works.
I'm
Like there
calling
are
somebody.
ways to like. There are ways like what if, for example, someone like steals a blind from someone on poker? They're now a scumbag.
What do
Like
you mean
no, that's not
steals a
how it
blind?
works. Steals a blind, stealing money.
What do you mean by stealing a blind though? Like they open a hand, or
They
they actually just steal the blind off the table?
they steal it accidentally. Well, now they need. I don't know. Is this really a great discussion? I'm just saying that there's like
I think it's a somewhat important discussion. So if somebody sees your money on the table, sees you're not noticing, and just steals your money while you're not looking, yes, they're a scumbag. Why is this hard? I don't understand why this has to be hard. If
I want to say.
someone takes
I would
money
say
that's
that if they make a habit of doing that, then they're a scumbag. But where am I going with this?
I feel like you have
All I want to
Stockholm
say is
syndrome on this issue. I feel like you've
I
been
don't think so.
captive for 12 years.
It's
And
really
at this
simple. Look, let's put it like this. Again, no need for the hate. Just stay in neutrality, and like it seems like that accomplishes the same thing. Like there's no need for the hate, is what I
All right.
think.
All right.
No need for the anger. No need for the hype or any of these stupid emotions. Just leave it in neutrality. That's my point of view. I do not. I just don't see. I also don't see how it's beneficial to hate someone. Let's put it that way, because then they're like, "Fuck this! I hate the world. I'll show them," kind of thing. If you hurt someone too much, then they just react like that.
Well, I do feel like we're getting bogged down in the weeds, and I don't want this
We are, yeah.
podcast to end up in the Dan Bilzerian podcast.
I think we should change subjects, but that's one thing I want to say is I don't think the hate really does much good.
What I'll say is my final point I want to make on this basically is when I say Tom Dwan's a scumbag, it doesn't mean I hate Tom Dwan. I barely know Tom Dwan. It just means that actions have to have repercussions, and we're calling a spade a spade. I'm not trying to call a spade a nice dark suit that could be interpreted as a spade some of the time. I'm not doing that. I'm just calling a spade a spade. That's all I'm trying to say here.
I don't want to have this discussion too much, but I really think that generally when someone says the word scumbag, hate is implied. So, I mean, it's like a really dark word. Let's put it that way. And I don't think there's really that much of a difference. Unless it's like, yeah, I don't think there's really that much of a difference in the way things work.
Well, this seems like a great opportunity to tell you guys about the exciting new launch of CoinFLEX.us. CoinFLEX.us. CoinFLEX is now available in the United States jurisdiction. Head on over to CoinFLEX.us today. Still have spots available, $50 available for the first 2,000 signups with a qualifying deposit. Head on over, zero trading fees on the platform. Additionally, flexUSD takes advantage and harnesses the value of the repo market at CoinFLEX for 5 to 15% APY. Redeemable at any time via USDC. Head on over to CoinFLEX.us today and check it out. Okay, had to launch into that for a moment. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about some topics. I'm sure the audience loves the 40-minute scumbag discussion. Let's talk about something totally different. There's no gray area here. Let's talk about Phil Hellmuth angle shooting amateurs on the Hustler live stream. You know, some good quality content that people want to talk about. This was the talk of the town. Breakdown for anyone that didn't hear about it before. Essentially, there was a 100-200 game on the Hustler live stream. It had a ton of famous influencers. It had Mr. Beast, had Ninja, Alexander Botez was on there. Ludwig, another well-known streamer / YouTuber, was on there. Basically, a lot of big personalities online, and then we had a few poker players in the game, including Tom Dwan, Phil Hellmuth, and Alan Keating, who is a good friend of Dan Bilzerian, my understanding is. Anyway, so a hand went down where basically a player goes all in. He looks at his cards. Hellmuth looks at his cards. Tom Dwan wants to see them. He passes them to Tom in a motion that looks like a fold. Tom looks, gives them back, but the recreational player thinks that it means that Phil Hellmuth is folding, and so he opens his hand. Hellmuth now sees he has the best hand. He makes the guy buy out for 5K and forfeit all of his equity in the pot. So I guess, what do you think should be the standard there, Jungle? If you were playing on a TV cash game with someone that's a super huge recreational player, they have no clue what's really going on, and then you pass your card to someone in a fast manner that induces them to open their cards thinking you folded. What do you think would be the fair resolution to that issue?
Well, for sure, Hellmuth is not allowed to do that mid-hand. I mean, this just is blatantly against the rules. So, like, to be honest, I would for sure be more lenient on the recreational player for a million reasons, and I would rule Hellmuth's hand to fold. That's what I would do. I think there's no mercy here on the pro.
Even though Hellmuth wasn't intending to fold?
Yeah, no mercy.
Oh, okay. All right, that's actually even stronger than what I thought. I did a video breaking it down, and I guess my thinking is that it depends on the ruling at that casino, because some casinos are different, right, with the rules of the card room.
Actually, I have a second. Well, it depends on. Yeah, well, it depends on the ruling of the actual casino, but let me think for a second.
It's a tough spot. My opinion on it was basically,
I thought it was just universally against the rules. In this case, this is what I think. This is such a weird. This is kind of a. It's a little bit weird just because, like, if it's within the rules, the casino, then I guess you can make a case that the recreational player is out of line. I mean,
the
still
recreational
needs, huh?
Go ahead.
There should be leniency for the recreational player, especially in these spots. Like in this case, what I would say is, well, I would kind of estimate like what percent of the time the rules of the casino allow this kind of thing, because it's definitely not conventional. Like if someone passes you, yeah, I would say it's you would just I think that's really what the play is basically estimate what the percent is on this being like the actual rule, and just divide the pot equity based.
That's going to be a hard decision to do in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one, I think you'd end up having it be like the volition of. I was going to say that it was up to the player that did this, that showed their hand. Wow, I'm like really all over the place with this one. I think, I don't know. I think basically it should be divided in some kind of percent, and like something like just some rough estimate of what percent of the time that's actually a rule, because most of the time, I think in most casinos.
Well, I don't think we need to do rough. I don't think we need to do rough percentages to rule. I think that the hustler has a set of rules. So whatever the rule is there on if that's a fold or not should be enforced. If that constitutes a fold, it's a fold. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then if it doesn't, I think Hellmuth should just let him off the hook. If I was the pro in that spot and someone did that, I would just say, just take the money back. We'll run out the board. If my actions basically cause that. Now, if we're in the middle of the hand, I'm thinking, and they expose, that's obviously on them. But if something I did created the confusion for the recreational player, I just wouldn't let them put the money in the pot. It's just too malicious. And he did let him buy out for a chunk, but he still made him pay 5K and forfeit the equity. The best part is that if they had run the board out, then the guy would have won, because he would have hit a 6. They both would have had top pair. He would have basically hit 2 pair to beat Hellmuth.
Well,
so it actually
super salty.
He actually would have won.
Ever.
Yeah.
Wow, that's super salty.
Do you have a general thought on Phil Hellmuth's demeanor at the table? Have you played with Phil Hellmuth? I'm sure you have at a few points.
I have. I think with recreational players, it's, I think this one's a little bit polarized, just because his demeanor isn't always abrasive. I think in this case it was. It's one of these subtle things where, if someone's enjoying what you're doing, then it's better than if they're not enjoying it. If they're not enjoying it, then it's very obnoxious and not good. And then if they are enjoying it, which happens quite a lot, I enjoy his antics most of the time. Then it's fine. He's he's done this. He's played up his poker brat personality pretty well in a sense, just because it's even though it's not in good taste and not exactly the best image, it's still an image. Whereas most poker players have no image, or they're essentially amorphous. So he's got that really, and I think he realizes this consciously. Actually, I don't think it's even subconscious. I think he realizes that, and this is his angle, and that's what he's doing. And yeah, in this case, I understand it was really not cool though. So especially with recreational players, you should really like strongly consider not, letting his emotions take control of him. So piss off too many people.
The thing for Hellmuth is that he doesn't have, when you're driving a car and you start driving, you're in first gear, and then the car ramps up a little bit. You get into second gear. You start to hit the highway. You hit third, fourth gear. Hellmuth has one gear, and it's just the sixth gear all the time at every table. Berate everyone, complain about hands, tell people how they messed up, say the word fuck a bajillion times. He's only in sixth gear at all time, and it feels like maybe, just maybe, when you're in a nice, pleasant community of middle class homes and people out and their children, maybe you don't want to be doing 75 as kids are crossing the crosswalk, and then Hellmuth is just in the Corvette, just zooming on by. I feel like he needs to have a little bit of awareness, and I do enjoy the Hellmuth antics. For the record, they can be quite funny. When I'm at the table, I don't really give a shit because people don't really offend me at the table. Just in general, it's kind of hard to offend me, so I don't have a problem with them. I guess my problem is when we have an event like this where we have tens of thousands of concurrent viewers. I'm sure it'll be in the millions of people that see this stream, and we have someone behaving like that. Then people from outside poker look at that and think, wow, poker players are pretty salty and suck to be around, right? Because if they see that, they might think those things. So I think that Phil needs to be able to put things into first gear just every now and then and cruise around the neighborhood.
No, I agree completely. I mean, I would say that I was saying something very similar, and I think that you expressed it or expounded on it, even expressed and expounded perfectly. I agree completely.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
We still have an exciting announcement coming at the conclusion of this podcast, so stay tuned, guys. But moving on to our next subject here. It's gonna be a lot of these subjects. It seems like today, Jungle. Any thoughts on some of the other cheating stuff going on? Some of the Ali Amsirovich RTA stuff. Any of the Bryn Kenny ghosting stuff. Any thoughts on the cheating at large that seem to be happening in the online poker world?
I guess it's not that surprising. Definitely not cool. I think these sorts of things should be. Actually, I do think these sorts of things should be kind of blasted, is my guess, because I just can't think of any solution to get people to stop. I'm trying to think. When people can't be enforced and they get caught when it's very easy to sneak around, then the punishment should be quite a bit larger, right? Is what I think. And I think punishment should be really severe in these situations, at least in terms of the backlash, because you don't want like a guy who's multi-accounting and stuff all the time to just be able to keep doing it. It's kind of an interesting situation because I have been guilty of this, but not that much, if people believe me. But anyway, I do actually support the general beratement of these people when they do these things.
When you say they should be punished severely, what can we do as a community? Because I look at tweets where I saw something where, trying to think who said this. I think Jason Kuhlman said it. Maybe I'm misremembering. I definitely remember Chance Corneth tweeting something in this vicinity. Maybe Alex Foxen as well, where people said we need to have some kind of poker blacklist where if you're not, essentially, if you get caught doing some type of thing at some level, you're not allowed to play in certain events. What do you think about that kind of idea?
Let me think. There's a couple problems with that. The first one is with VIPs. you really want them to keep playing. So maybe you could make you can make it worse if pros play, but you don't really want to encourage VIPs to do it either, right? Well, it depends on what it is, I guess. It depends on what it is. So there's that. Maybe they just get more leniency. I don't know. The second thing is the one thing I just really struggle with these, like when people do bad things, is making it permanent. Like this, I don't agree with. That's the one thing I struggle with. Is like there should be a system where people are allowed to redeem themselves in some kind of way. I don't know what do you think of that, but like if someone does something bad that's like not that bad, they shouldn't be like permanently banned from tournaments right after.
Depends on the
I
thing.
like generally the idea of outing people. I think that's good. I think that has to be done. Actually, I think that's like the biological, that's like the defense against people doing bad things. So I think some kind of public embarrassment is appropriate. Actually, yeah, some kind of blacklist. But I just again, it's without the hate. Without the hate is the key thing, and I think this is what people are guilty of. Is this like crazy self-righteousness of like, let's go on this witch hunt because this person did a bad thing and it's like they killed fucking kittens or something, and let's just remember it like a decade later. Like this I can't agree with, but other than that, it's good. It just has to be, I personally think it should be just done in neutrality, and it's just like these are the consequences of what you did. In like a year you can play again or something like that. It's not something that should be permanent. And after that, if they get caught again, the punishment is more severe and exponentially more severe. And then after that, the punishment should increase. There should be some comparison to the judicial system, because I think I think they do a good job. It's just, yeah. Those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, so a few things here. I think that the crime matters, right? Like if somebody was just ghosting someone on an account, look, like shouldn't do it. Fairly tame. If somebody was running, or someone had some prefop charts open on a site that doesn't have that as part of their terms of service, shouldn't do it. Fairly tame. If someone has a solver up, solving the solution of a pot that they're in while you're in it, pretty fucked up. Maybe not the worst thing ever, but still pretty fucked up. That's pretty bad. But now let's just say someone is marking all of the cards in a high roller and knows when you have an ace and uses that to win a high roller. Extremely fucking bad. So there's a range. So I think that it should matter what they did. I think if someone is on those last couple of examples, a very long and or permanent ban could make sense. I think in the first couple of examples, some kind of shorter ban or warning or whatever makes a little more sense. So I think it obviously needs to be based on, what they did.
Yeah, of course. No, I agree. I mean, I think there's common sense applies here. That's the cool thing about common sense, is that it kind of does work. It should, the punishment should fit the crime. It's simple, Again, don't need the hate.
What's up with you and the hate thing? I feel like we have a real strong feeling of anger towards the word hate. One might call it
hate.
You have a hate for the hate. That's exactly where I was going. What's up with this anti-hate stuff? Can you break it down?
Well, it's really simple. First of all, I believe that people can redeem themselves, and I've seen it a lot of the time. I've seen people change in the poker world, and the poker world itself has changed. Actually, it was once like a den of like people cheating each other and all this sort of stuff, and like cheating the VIPs and this kind of stuff, and it no longer is. I actually find that really interesting why it changed. I don't totally understand that. I was curious to ask some of the older guys. I don't know if it's like the people that came into it. I don't know if it just changed over time or whatever. So there's that. And I think a really common problem is that people always are really quick to do this, to point the finger at someone and you're a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, they probably did something bad too. It's sort of like, if we're all going to like pluck each other's eyes out, the whole world is blind, right? And it's like, and it's thinking, again, even using the idea of utilitarianism, or just effective altruism, or just effective, like, let's do something better. The idea is let's fix this and move on and not keep pointing the fucking finger like forever later when things are no longer a problem. And I think just people really like to hate, basically. It's really addictive, and it makes people feel better than each other, and that kind of thing. I just think it's a really big problem, and I don't think it's that obvious. And I just want to point out it's not necessary, and it doesn't really do any good. And also, by the way, another thing that's important is if someone is guilty and they decided they want to reform, and then people are like, "You're a piece of shit. Fuck you, you scumbag." For what you did, it's like, why should they reform? You know what I mean? It's like they're going to get called a piece of shit no matter what for their life. And if like that's the case, you're basically encouraging them to keep being a piece of shit. It's actually a little bit self-fulfilling, is the funny thing. And there are even examples of this in history, where like certain groups were just hated on forever, and like natives of like I think the natives in Australia, for example, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But anyway, basically it caused them to be really angry and just backlash against everyone, because it's like everyone hates them. And everyone thinks they're, and they receive so much racism that they're like, well, fuck everyone kind of thing. And this is what you're encouraging when you hate.
Well, you're tapping into a subject that I think is especially prevalent in the media today, where people do tap into essentially the anger and people being upset in the community and use that to drive stories. Obviously, I'm a part of that. I know that. But the other side of the coin here is, just because no one's perfect and everyone's made their mistakes doesn't mean that all mistakes are equal. And I feel like by sort of saying that everyone makes mistakes, you kind of lump different things in together that shouldn't be lumped in together. And do you feel like maybe it kind of allows people to act unethically by trying to make it say, hey, we're all not perfect? Well, what you did does matter. And when people do things that are messed up, I feel like it's important.
There's a missing element in this. There's a missing element in this. The element is they no longer do those things. If someone did something bad and then they stop doing it, it's no longer a problem, right? But if they keep doing it, it's still a problem. And obviously, and again, the punishment should fit the crime. Like if someone did something really bad, there should be more penalties. And if they didn't, there should be, if it's something small, there should be less. I mean, the punishment should fit the crime, basically. I feel like this solves every problem.
But we're going back to what we're saying about people. We're hating the hate. We're not down with the hate. Sometimes people do things that are reasonable to hate them for. So where's the line? Did you hate Hitler, Jungle? Hitler. What do you think? Hate or too strong?
Maybe
did a few bad things, Wasn't always doing
maybe
them.
I should. I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like there are definitely some things. I don't think.
Wow.
I don't know. There should be like.
Oh man.
This is a tough one.
Quite the moment for the podcast here.
I didn't expect to be put in this one. I'm referring to like not that bad things, basically. I'm not really referring to like mass genocide.
But what about the other 90% of the time where he wasn't doing mass genocide?
What are you talking about? This was his whole career.
Yeah, there was.
It's not 90%. It's
when
like
he was
10%.
16 years old, there was no mass genocide going on. When it was 24, everything was good.
I mean, oh man. Well, he ended up basically doing mass genocide, and that was his legacy. So, like, it's one of these things where, like, that's now his legacy. It's kind of like, it goes back to, are they doing it or not? And he was doing it, and he shot himself, right? So that was his legacy. And the whole time he was doing it, and he shot himself, and he didn't redeem himself for his mistakes. And, like, for sure, let's put it this way. It's kind of like when you play a lot of small pots, like no one really cares, and you start playing really big pots, and you start blowing away your money. That's where the money actually went. It's like, let's pay attention to these big pots that you just dumped off.
Unbelievable.
That's really, you can say that 90% of the time he did nothing, but it's like, even if he's 10% the other times, it's like 10% he's moving all in, and he's just like moving all in blind. You know what I mean?
Did
that's going to way overshadow all the small things.
So do you hate Hitler?
I don't feel hate towards him, but maybe I should. I don't know. This one I haven't thought about. Like, this seems fairly useless. I mean, fuck.
Where are we at on Stalin?
I mean, they're pretty much in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
I don't
very much
really
so.
understand their ways of doing things. That's for sure. I'm kind of lost on this. I don't even understand, frankly. I don't understand really rich people who need like another yacht. Like, I don't get this. To me, it's like, what the fuck
Beautiful
do you need like
transition.
another yacht?
Beautiful,
Huh?
beautiful transition out of the Hitler-Stalin conversation into
I mean,
just
it's kind
rich
of
people at large.
similar, actually. I mean, well, no, it's not. It's not really.
Please go on.
Let's not go make that comparison. It's just the need for excess. Let's put it this way. In Stalin's case, it's power or whatever at the cost of, well, it's like wildly out of proportion. These kinds of people. But like, I feel like everything is essentially a function of need for excess or not, or something like that, or need for excess at the expense of other people. Where I guess, luxuries aren't exactly like that at all. There's not much expense to the other people as far as I can see. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I think this line has really, I think we've exhausted the hate conversation, but definitely interesting. And
All right.
I do feel like you've reached a place with a lot of zen where you're able to move past the hate. That seems very healthy and good. But I do think that hate is a reasonable emotion, and there are things that cross the line, like Hitler. But we can move on to the next topic here because it's never good when you get into Hitler territory. What are your thoughts about artificial intelligence in poker? You have been a big fan of The Sims for many years, Sims tweets going back for years. What are your thoughts on the advantages of AI poker today when it comes to learning and using it as a tool versus the trade-off where people are able to use these tools to essentially cheat in online games?
Actually, there has been some. I'm not like super well read on AI or anything like that, but as it happens, there's some kind of experimentation done on this and some kind of research done, and it turns out the best thing is a combination of AI and human stuff working together. Good old chimera combination.
Are we talking about in poker, or are we talking
That's
about
how it works in both. Maybe you want to be a little of both. You gotta have a little machine, a little animal inside. You definitely need a little machine. Let me tell you. So you got to delve into the machines. You got to be like a modern day Terminator when you go into the poker world. When you're going into the competitive poker world, you got to have a little technology under your belt. You got to have a little
Definitely.
metal, and you got to have a little beast too. That's the thing. You can't like forego your humanity.
How often when you're playing poker are you just trying to emulate what you think AI would say or what a solver would say versus are you going out into the jungle and trying to slash and hack your way to the nearest village?
It's actually a good question. I kind of like a little slash and hack. Just I don't know, satisfy some kind of primal urge. I actually don't listen to the solver a lot. I use solver type solutions against people that are playing solver type solutions, and against people that are playing that are somewhere lost in the forest. You know what's coming. That's when you get lost in the jungle. I mean, that's just that one is. Then you have to slash them up. I mean, that's just in the nature of the beast. Okay, don't judge me. It's in the nature of the beast. Someone's been slashed. Now you know why. Don't get lost in the jungle or the forest or whatever.
This podcast feels completely off the goddamn rails right now. I feel like we are just totally off the rails. We're in a forest and there's hacking and slashing and you're taking them out there. But going back to some solver stuff, do you think it's important to spend a lot of time there to be relevant in today's games at higher stakes? Or is it more about finding the spots? Because I feel like people have gone two different ways. You have people that have just tried to focus exclusively on finding good games to play in versus the people that have really tried to become top-notch competitors. What do you view as the right path forward for a high stakes player? What do you do yourself?
I do something different. So I think if you're going to be competitive and you're going to make poker your life, then you need to be hitting the sims every day. It's kind of like if you want to get big and you want to compete in the world cup or whatever, and the Olympic weights, you got to be hitting those sims every day. You got to be eating right. You got to be getting your macros or whatever. All that stuff. You got to that's not easy to be like that. And actually, that analogy kind of works out pretty well. But if you want more free time and your situation is a little bit more liberal, then you should wait for your spots to some extent. I mean, yeah, I think, but you'll make less money from poker, that's for sure. I'm sort of doing that, but I want to do other things at poker because poker to me, I've gotten to the point in my life where my views on utility changed. Of brings utility to me have changed. I've started to realize what is the point? For me, it's what is the point of having $15 million versus $3 million. Honestly, I don't see much of a difference between those two numbers in terms of what your life actually looks like, if that makes sense. Just looking at those two numbers, what you'll have a yacht or something, whatever. I don't get it.
At 15
and
million?
well, you can have multiple properties. What are you going to do with 15 million that you're not going to do with 3 million
I could say I've been at both.
Reinvest or whatever.
I could say I've been at both those numbers, and there's very little difference between 3 and 15.
Well, yeah, in terms of life quality, the difference is very small. So let's put it that way. But if you want to grind your ass off for years to get to 15 million versus 3, in terms of just playing poker, for example, it would take a massive, massive amount of effort. And actually, your life quality would go down, even though you're really rich. And money is no longer my priority. Also, so basically, I've just tried to expand my career into other things. I've tried to have a better life quality. I try to improve myself in all sorts of ways, and now I pick my spots quite a bit. I mean, I still, battle a bit, but it doesn't make any sense for me to go on the internet and battle the very best in the world because at their niche, especially because what would be the point of that? I don't see what there's no what's the utility? I get a trophy or I get my name on a fucking website or what? I don't care. And I'd rather find a way to build something way beyond poker, which I haven't exactly succeeded, but that's essentially the plan. I decided that that a likely, I decided that certain things are really valuable to me. Only really a general level of happiness, difference in purpose, and I want to find the perfect partner ideally, which is very difficult. Well, not even really the perfect one, actually. I changed my mind about that. But yeah, that's pretty much, very brief summary of what's been going on.
Yeah. What are your goals? If you're not money focused, then what kind of is your overarching, what are your overarching goals? I would assume you just said finding a partner, but what else career wise drives you, and what do you find? What are your goals?
Okay, so there's two general themes. I came to the logical suspicion that what creates the most long-term utility for someone, particularly if karma or whatever exists, is doing the most good in the world somehow. Because it just seems like that's the most long-term beneficial for yourself in the super, super, super long term. Usually those things have more EV, although that view is a bit questionable. So I've aimed in that direction, but I can also say that doing that creates more purpose in my life, and is a lot more interesting. It's made my life really interesting, but it's also made it really stressful. Let me tell you, I really made a million mistakes and Yeah, I made a million mistakes, but I think we're getting somewhere. I also kind of concluded that, if there's not something beyond this life, then everything is essentially, it's almost like, how do you say? It's like reduced to zero in the super long run anyway. I don't always feel that way, obviously. Like, I'm still human. But a lot of my decisions are kind of based off of that philosophy. I started a charity foundation, but effective altruism is a better route to actually make grand change. It's a bit of a dream to mine to do that. And this has opened up the door to what this idea of enlightenment, which is, in all these religions, there's this mystical like view of like what it is, and it's around like all these miracles. Like, are these miracles real? I don't know. So I've been interested in that. I've been pursuing that part time, but I don't know if it's real, as I just said. And then something a lot more tangible is for for pursuing women. I just want to find, ideally, I mean, it's a really annoying situation, but ideally one partner. Although my actions probably don't really look like like I'm doing that. To be honest, it really doesn't look like I'm doing that. If you're
Let me,
like,
while we're on this topic, can I ask you, what the hell were those softcore porn videos that came out with you and all the girls? What was, when I saw that, I was so confused. Can you give me some backstory? What was that?
you
Why and
know,
what and anything else?
well, that part of that was unplanned, so there's that. And it was one of these things where, how when you're gambling, there are payoffs that are intangible, and this one I just thought was an asymmetrically positive payoff, basically. And I've been making kind of, I decided that I wanted to pursue life experiences that have asymmetric positive payoff
Wow.
that are not necessarily related to money. So that's why I did that crazy thing. And it was fun. And not everyone's got that story. So what else? Yeah.
What was the unplanned part to that? Because it looked pretty planned. What do you mean it was part unplanned?
I didn't know that it was going to be a softcore porn. Let's put it that way. A lot of that was unplanned.
How did you,
That was just going to be a strip poker video. Okay.
you were involved in the planning of this video? How did this happen?
I was involved, but I just was told it was like it was a yeah, I was just told it was a strip poker video, and then they said, you know what, let's make it like one of the girls is really interested in you, and then I just ran with it, and it worked out. That's about it.
Who
It was pretty cheap to make. Actually, it was a great deal, but I think that overall it will hurt my image in the long run if I don't say, all right, I'm not this guy anymore. I'm not the Playboy guy, and I realized basically it became very clear to me and even all the people that were running this thing that they just wanted. It just seemed really actually the most long-term beneficial to have one girl that they were really into, which I found was interesting. I don't know if that's supposed to last forever. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's the funny thing is all the players or whatever doing that were all basically just picked one girl and stayed with that girl. Is the irony.
For the live viewers, I put the link in the chat. For people listening on audio platforms, you can always go back and Joe Ingram has a tweet. Just Google Jungleman poker softcore porn and it should pop up. You should be good to go.
I think I need to get rid of it, honestly. I don't.
You're gonna get rid of it. I think, dude, you can't get rid of stuff.
One of these things that I thought it would be good for my career. In some
good for your career. This is a career play. You thought
so it's a career life play. It's variance and intangible asymmetric payoffs. Naked girls. Anything could go wrong. Actually, it's not really a good look, as it turns out. In certain high cultures, it's really not great. But
Okay. It doesn't matter how many times you say asymmetric payouts. It's not going to change how truly incredible that this is, that it happened, and how just genuinely it's unbelievable that this thing exists.
Well, there you go. It's created all that in you guys. I think I'm going to do more things like that as long as they're in line with people that I want to be around and, that kind of thing. It sounds like, it gave you all the what the fuck feeling. It blew up the poker world. For that, I'm proud. Even though as a budding bachelor, it's not the best look. And those days are behind me.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the worst. Like, I bet you things are going okay for Blazarian, despite all of the videos out there that are.
I hear in certain. He seems to have gotten like a lot of judgment. I personally don't care that much about this kind of thing, but in certain circles, in certain groups, they don't really look too highly on what he's been doing. But I don't care. I just don't care, man. I don't get all this judgment. I don't get it. I don't get the hate. I don't get the judgment. I don't fucking understand it.
Jungle, we are social creatures, and we like to talk to people. We like to hear what other people are doing. We like to know what people are up to.
Yeah, but it's different from hating and judging.
Well, when you hear what people are doing and you don't agree with it, the only
reason to hate and judge is to feel better than someone, right?
Not everyone is so zen and at inner peace with all things like you are. People have emotions. People, you're at peace with a lot more than
guru.
What boils your blood, Jungle? What boils your blood?
There's a few things. Lying really does. Hypocrisy. I figured out one day, it just kind of hit me. I was like, wait, all the bad things really pissed me off. And I was just like, wait, let's just not do the bad things, actually. But lying is like one of the biggest ones. I hate lying. Oh, look, there's something I hate. Oh, damn it. They caught me. Oh, no. Hypocrisy. Oh, no, I'm a hypocrite. Oh, no.
Hate lying.
No. Oh, no. Oh, man. Oh, that was a trap, and I fell right into it.
It was your own trap. I didn't set that one.
Yeah, well, I got myself good.
Let's hone back in briefly. I can't believe we're doing this. The viewers are going to be like, "Why are you asking this?" So what's going on with the Jungleman?
Are you asking?
What's going on with the Jungleman love life search here? Seems like you've been trying to find the one for a while. Seems like that's pretty high on the priority list. How's the search going?
That's an interesting question. So that's an interesting question. I had a number of things that I learned because basically this one girl who's really, really spicy in many ways, she's a very unusual girl. And yeah, she had some very erratic behavior and it drove me kind of mad. And I had this crazy saga where we somehow met like right before I was like leaving London, and it worked out and got back together. And then she went to New Zealand, and then 4 months later she comes back and dumps me. And then we meet in Venice on accident, like a totally random, and then
destiny.
And then it worked, and then we were together again, and everything seemed perfect, and then it wasn't. I'm like, what the fuck? So I've been on this path of self-improvement in all these ways. One thing that hit me was like, well, if I want, it's not so much that I've been pursuing the partner thing just because I think I have to, on the actual like looking for women thing. But it also makes me realize, wait, why, maybe I should just have been happy with my ex-girlfriend and like not bothered to like keep hunting around and that kind of thing. It just seemed like a way simpler situation. And it was like, was it really worth it to like add all this complexity because I was horny, sort of thing? Or you know what I mean?
Asymmetric returns, Jungle. Really, that's
in this case, it was just wildly not asymmetric returns. But one thing I realized is that the direction to becoming a better person, especially in intangible ways, I mean, making money is also part of that, and getting the girl that you want is kind of the same direction. So I focused a lot on self-improvement in many different ways, and I improved less than I thought I would. But I definitely improved and learned a lot, and it made my life a lot more interesting. I mean, yeah, it's one thing I realized is that yeah, people are a lot more shallow these days than they realize, than people expect. And one thing that makes me really mad about this current dating situation is that everyone seems super judgmental and just says all these stupid fucking things and just doesn't understand like what's actually going on.
What's an example of
And
some stupid things people say?
just be yourself. This is like one major thing is that people have all these um, sort of defense mechanisms for why they should be, a shitty person and not change, and or why they're entitled to something really good, and they don't want to put in the work and actually become like the really good thing. And they also don't realize, why they're actually pulling, and it happens to be very annoying, but it just kind of is what it is, because there's just statistically, for example, height matters like a massive amount these days. Maybe mostly on online dating, it doesn't matter that much in some situations, of course, but it's kind of like, oh, just be yourself, bro. Like, it's bad advice. It's bad advice because if you want to just get anything in life, you need to take life by the balls and go get it. You can't just be yourself. And I think it goes for women too, even though they have a really interesting situation that is very difficult to navigate in a sense, even though it doesn't appear that way. And that's the deception. Because basically, from their perspective, it looks like they have all these options and it's never going to end. And then all of a sudden it does, and there's no going back. And they never really had all those options, but it always looks that way. You know what I mean? And it's just really hard for a lot of, it's really hard for them to really choose effectively which guy they're going to be with. And also, yeah, it's just really easy to fall into various traps if you're a woman. It's very sneaky, and for guys these days, it's if you're an average guy, I feel sorry for the average guys, man, because it's really tough if you're an average guy. It feels like if you're in the U.S. or if you're in one of these like I don't know. I would say if you were in like one of these first world countries, excuse me, one of the Western culture countries or ones that are really hit by the Western culture, if you're an average guy and you don't have much going for you, like why is a girl going to choose you? Why? There has
Well,
to be something.
average guys have had a tough time for a long period of time when it comes to
What?
dating. But the thing is that online dating has made this a lot worse because now I saw some studies on this. Basically, because it's so much more effective to date, and I've never dated in the area where with online dating. I never was on any online sites, anything like that. I only went out and met people. But now that it's online dating, the top, let's just say 10-15% of guys get a disproportionately large exposure to the dating pool, and thus the average bar for what women will be willing to go on a date with or whatever has risen. And so now essentially the average guy is far less successful when it comes to dating than they were even just 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now it's really savage with online dating, but I think a couple weird things have happened, but I'm not really sure. I've had a lot of mixed experiences, but first I want to say this shows both things. Like, firstly, the girls, who are like sevens or whatever, now think they're entitled to the guy who's like a nine. You could say, because the nine's hooking up with them, man, and like the nine's choosing them, and here's all these nines online. There's so many, right? But if you look at things mathematically, basically basically the pigeonhole effect. There's not going to be enough of these guys to settle down with these girls. The guys will just, share, sleep around with them and that kind of thing, and no one will settle down. And this is what we have. We have hookup culture. Um, and yeah, but basically, in the end, the girls get heartbroken quite a lot, and they're like, "Why are none of these guys loyal?" This is what I understand is going on, and then all the guys in the middle are like, "Why should we even try? We're not getting any anyway." Um, or it's very hard to realize to try hard enough to like get over that hoop. It's like not an easy thing at all. You need to stand out in some kind of way or be persistent enough. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. One other thing I want to say is it might be the case that in other ways to pick up women, just because, like, the thing is, I mean, I'm not an expert, but basically because it works in a similar way as poker in that if too much emphasis is put in one direction, if you go in a different direction, now something is taken away from that, if that makes sense. So it might be the case that it's much easier to stand out, like going out on the street or in a cafe and picking up a girl because, like, maybe they're just not as used to that because a lot of guys are afraid. And why would guys who are amazing on online dating have to do this? Why would they do this? They just sit on home um, and swipe online or whatever, right? So it just might be the case that you can still stand out in different kinds of ways. But it's really hard to say. I mean, this is a really difficult area for all sorts of reasons. I just think people are really ignorant as to what's going on, and they're also tied to this belief that maybe once was true in the 1950s or something, that you're gonna get a girl if you're just, you just have to wait and the right girl will come along, all this stuff. But it's not true anymore.
I don't feel like I have a good piece to add here because I've been with the same person for 10 years. I've never done online dating. I don't know what it's like today. I don't even, when people make Tinder comments, they say, oh, definitely swipe one direction on that. I don't even know what that means. I recognize it's a Tinder reference, I think. But I just basically have not enough opinion in the online dating era. What I can say when it comes to dating is it is actually quite funny when you said that people say just be yourself. It's like that's really what, and it's not to say you should be a liar or something like that, but you need to be a confident, outgoing version of yourself if you really want to have a chance to succeed in most environments. But let's move on. We have a couple more things to talk about here, and we're running low on time, and I just want to get some of this stuff in. So, on a recent podcast series I did, we had best poker players of all time, and we asked a bunch of people for their input on who was the number one poker player of all time. You did something very unique. You put yourself at the top of the list and then said "of" afterwards. Break it down for me. Why are you the number one poker player of all time, and also why is that quote "of"?
Because I think I can reasonably. I think there's like some kind of reasonable chance that I am, and in that case, if you have to pick a spot, you would pick the best one.
Well, this is your spot where it's a good spot for you to be considered the best poker player.
Yeah, it is. I mean, someone's gonna say something for sure, but why not just pick the spot if like no one else is gonna pick it? You know what I mean?
You gotta call your own shots. Gotta call your shots.
I think that makes sense.
What do you think about the omission of True Teller and Ben Solsky both not making the top 20 on that list? How do you feel about that?
See, this is where like perception doesn't meet reality, because definitely both of those guys. I guess someone could make a case for Ben. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but for sure, True Teller should be in the top 20. I mean, he's like, he might be the best poker player for sure. Like, there's a very real chance.
Yeah, he's a great player. Very balanced, very aggressive, very sharp.
Well, he's very good at tournaments, very good at all the games. Okay, so what is?
He doesn't play that many tournaments. He doesn't play that very, very few tournaments.
Like, he's better than me at tournaments, I'd have to imagine.
How many tournaments do you play?
Not many at all.
Yeah,
he used to play a lot. Well, I played kind of a lot, but I'm definitely not top player.
You were too punty in tournaments, from what I saw.
I think I've cleaned up a bit, but I still make big ICM mistakes now and then.
It's okay. I'm in there. I'm in there too, so I know what it's like.
It's really easy to make a big ICM mistake when you're not really. It's not your specialty.
Absolutely. Last question I had here. So, how much poker do you actually play these days? Where are you playing at? What are your games? What are you up to?
Let's see. I've played it more in concentrated amounts. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, more in concentrated amounts, you could say. And yeah, I'm really trying to do other things, man. I'm interested. The problem that I have is I'm interested in too much. I realize it's like, and that girl situation really messed with me. So I was like kind of fighting these like emotional swings while doing this. Poker actually would be simple, but I want to live my life doing more than just poker. I want to I want to become an entrepreneur, do something in business that has a big impact in the world. And then, I realized, I need to be, the best way to do that is to be something like this enlightened person. But is it even fucking real is part of the thing. Like, is it real to be something like Buddha? Like, it's like intangible. And what else?
I asked
and then
you
like
what
the whole
poker you're
girl thing
playing.
was really complicated.
I asked you about how much poker you're playing, and you worked your way into trying to be like Buddha as part of your response to that question.
Well, this is the stuff I'm focusing on other than poker. Like I'm playing a little poker for me. I want to have it. It's still part of who I am. I'm still a poker player, but I can't just be grinding on the internet all the time unless the money makes sense or the prestige makes sense. Like beating your ass down is a worthy cause for me to get back into the streets.
Well, that's
start
good
studying
news.
Your sins. You and Phil Galfond, Falcons. I mean, you're next. I mean, you're coming down first just because Falcons has gone into hiding. But you talk a lot of shit. You need to get put in your place.
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up. This is what's gonna happen. This is an announcement made to the chat. May 28th. It's going down. Jungle's coming down to Austin.
It's going down. Austin,
May 28th.
Texas. It's Texas shootout. It's Texas.
I will beat your ass at some 200, 400 heads up no limit hold'em, $50,000 buy-in. Definitely gonna have some reloads on deck. I'm gonna show you how heads up no limit is played. You beat me before. You sat out. You hit and run me. You said something about life. Something about Buddha. Something about all the buy-ins, where they're gonna be spent. I've had enough of this fucking shit. I'm gonna kick your ass in my own room. I'll see you at the lodge.
All right. I'm there. I'm giving you that beatdown. This has been long. I've been dreaming about this, actually. I've been
dreaming.
Dreaming. This is what I wanted. I was waiting for you to go to Texas so I could say that we could have a Texas showdown and, bring it back to where poker began. And now it's a reunion time, and it's time to, make a stand for all the shit you've talked.
Well, your dream is about to become a fucking nightmare, because I'm going to be handing out the business, and we'll see you guys on the Lodge live stream May 28th. Should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Lodge live stream it is.
Lodge live stream it is. Jungle, thank you for coming on the podcast once again. If you guys want to check out Jungle's new podcast, I'll be joining him for an episode coming up in the near future. He's had some pretty big guests out of the gate. You've had an impressive guest lineup out of the gate. But anyway, the podcast is called Winning the Game of Life.
Yeah,
you guys can tune in and check that out with Jungle. Jungle, any last words for the audience here?
Hate you.
I think that's a no. That's going to be a no, guys. That's going to be a no. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. A great one as always. Don't have next week scheduled yet for the podcast guests, but I'll let you know on social media. Once again, guys, I've seen the stats. A lot of you guys are not subscribed and you're watching. It's actually like a disproportional number of you guys are not subscribed. Just hit the subscribe button. Supports the channel. You can turn on notifications if you want for when we go live. Usually it's Tuesdays around middle of the day. Either way, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on things like frog poison. We actually didn't even talk about any frog poison today.
Dude, frog poison. Oh my God, you left out the frog poison. What's wrong with you? That was like the one reason why I came on the stream, other than to talk shit. Those are the only two reasons. I'm actually really mad.
Well, you managed to talk shit, but we didn't talk about any frog poison. That's going to be it. I'll see you guys next
frog
week.
Poison in the stream. The loser has to have
combo cleansing. Loser of the heads up has to go for some combo cleansing. That would be some pretty high stakes. All right, that's going to be a wrap here. I'll see you guys next week.
Loser's got to see the shaman.
Loser's got to see the shaman. You know what I'm going to do, Jungle? I'm going to ask the psychic how you're planning on playing so I know what to do.
I got psychic of my own. I got covered on the psychic space. I hope you do that. My psychics are way better than yours for sure.
I don't have one, so I imagine that's true. That's going to be it. See you guys. What the hell, man?